All right, welcome back to the channel. So Errol Spence Jr. got a message. Man, you cannot hunt the hunter. And he said he is going to walk through Danny Garcia. He ain't afraid of Keith Thurman. He ain't afraid of none of these dudes. And and Terence Crawford, on the other hand, ain't quite so sure and expresses doubts about Errol Spence Jr.'s future. Let's talk about all of that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford exchange words. Now, why is that important? Because it is important because this is the best fight that could take place in the sport of boxing, in my opinion, right now. Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Bud Crawford. Errol Spence Jr. is the WBC and the IBF welterweight champion, and Terence Crawford is the WBO welterweight champion. They are both very high in pretty much all of the pound for pound lists that I've seen. They both rightfully belong there. Terence Crawford, to me, is the #1 pound for pound guy in the world. Errol Spence, for me, is the #1 welterweight in the world. So it's definitely a fight that we want to see. Unfortunately, Errol Spence Jr., as we all know, was in a car accident. Fortunately, let me put it that way. He survived a car accident and seemingly got out of there, with little to no damage. And what damage took place has healed, as Errol Spence Jr. said, as he's been to the Cleveland Clinic, or I do believe it's like a famous or a very high level hospital with world renowned experts, and they gave him the bill of health, and gave him a clean bill of health and said, hey man, you're completely healed, you're willing to go. Errol Spence Jr. is training. You can see him training, putting his videos up, already looking like he's very close to weight. And this is way before there's even, people know when the Danny Garcia fight is going to take place, or his next fight is going to take place. So he's looking really good right now. But it doesn't seem as if a whole lot of the welterweights are believing him, because you have a lot of guys who were quote unquote, who are ducking him. There ain't a lot of guys calling him out now who were ducking him before, right? Now, Danny Garcia is not calling him out. Danny Garcia has the fight, right? Sean Porter ain't, is calling him out because he's just coming off of an L with him after having made it very difficult for Errol Spence to get a fight with him to begin with. So you obviously got Terence Crawford out there. Manny Pacquiao's not saying much, but you got Ugas who wants to fight him. He's pretty much the guy in the welterweight division, other than Manny Pacquiao, who carries a lot of name, a lot of cachet in his name, but he's pretty much the focal point for all of these guys, at 147 pounds. And they're acting as if they see something soft. Now, it's not unreasonable for people to doubt whether or not Errol Spence Jr., has recovered 100% from his accident. It's hard to fathom. And like I said, I get it, because it's very hard for people to fathom a man, driving a Ferrari, getting thrown out of the Ferrari, landing 80 feet away from a car that might have flipped over 15, 20 times at a rate of speed that looked like, over 100 miles an hour. So it was, obviously after it hit, the car slowed down every time it flipped over. So, but you get my point, just crazy accident. And it's reasonable for people to suspect that there might be an issue. But Errol Spence Jr. saying, look, man, I got a clean bill of health, and I've got a clean bill of health, and none of these dudes can hunt me because I'm the hunter. I said, you can't hunt the hunter. Now, obviously, he was the hunter for the majority of his career because he was looking to get these guys in the ring. But there was a point in period of time, and I think that that he would say the same thing, that he might have lost his focus a little bit, lost his hunger because he had got to the top of the mountaintop, right? There's the whole saying, famous from Marvin Hagler, that it was very difficult to get up and run when you're sleeping in silk sheets. But with this car accident and a lot of people doubting him, him having his life flash behind his eyes and all that, he said, look, I now have something to prove. And it's very, very clear that Errol Spence Jr. has something to prove. He has a lot of doubters to overcome because many people have just assumed that he will never be the same, right? And quite honestly, there's a lot of people out there hoping that he will not be the same. Now, the big fight that everybody wants is clearly the Terence Crawford fight, and Terence Crawford is one of the people that are still out there questioning whether or not Errol Spence Jr. is all the way healthy or not. Now, why would I say that that's his stance? Because he said, recently that the Danny Garcia fight will tell you where Errol Spence Jr. is, as far as his health is concerned, right? Whether or not he's 100% or not 100%. Now, my personal opinion about that is I don't know whether or not that's going to show in the Danny Garcia fight, because I'm not one of these people that are going to underestimate Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is an excellent fighter, dude. There's nobody has blown out Danny Garcia or made Danny Garcia look like he couldn't compete with these guys. And Danny Garcia has fought two of the best welterweights in Sean Porter and Keith Thurman. And in the second half of each of those fights, I think Danny Garcia showed very well. And I think that he won the second half of both of those fights. But the problem with Danny Garcia is that Danny Garcia, is a bit of a slow starter, and because he's a counter puncher, he's trying to punch when you're punching. So, he's not somebody that's going to jump out there quickly and take a lead, right? So in the case of, guys that fight very well on the back foot or outbox well, like Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, he got behind, right? So that doesn't mean, but the styles of Errol Spence Jr. and Sean Porter and Keith Thurman are different. I don't know if Errol Spence Jr. is, with the way that he fights, if not his ability, he has the ability to do this, but I don't know if he's going to take the approach of doing it, which is that if he decides he just is going to bowl through and run through Danny Garcia, right? It doesn't matter whether or not, what grade of shape he's going to be in, because he could be in I'm not going to say it doesn't matter the shape he's in, but he could do it. He could be in the best shape of his life. Let me put it that way. He could be in the best shape of his life if he chooses to fight Danny Garcia in a manner where he is just going to come forward. He's going to come forward, block shots with his arms, go to Danny Garcia's body, try to wear him down and stop him. You could see, like I said, even if Errol Spence Jr. is in the best shape of his life, with Danny Garcia, there is a significant chance that he can get caught with that left hook at some point in time in that fight, and it could make him a little bit wary or change the fight, because Danny Garcia does have that type of power. He completely commits to that left hook, and he can throw that left hook when he's looking, when he ain't looking. It really is one of the best shots, in my opinion, one of the best shots in all of boxing. So, the idea that, Danny Garcia, the only way that Danny Garcia can give Errol Spence Jr. a really good fight or a challenging fight is if Errol Spence Jr. is not 100%. I don't think that that's true. I think Danny Garcia can give Errol Spence Jr. a tough fight if he is 100%, right? So for me, the only thing that I need to see out of Errol Spence Jr. in Danny Garcia fight is that he wins the fight. Now, I would prefer if Errol Spence Jr. had a fight that looked lackluster against Danny Garcia, because I think that he could fight Danny Garcia and beat Danny Garcia, similar to the way he beat Mikey Garcia, right? Probably not as easily. I mean, I think because Danny Garcia is bigger than Mikey Garcia, he's a little bit stronger or I suspect he's a lot stronger than Mikey Garcia. He's going to present some different problems than Mikey Garcia, but still, if Errol Spence Jr. fights him from the outside, wins rounds, moves, uses a lot of lateral movement, right? Make Danny Garcia come to him, or when he starts coming to him, just, throwing off 3-punch combinations and looking out for that left hook. I think Errol Spence Jr. can walk to a wide decision victory. If he fights him, gunning, if he's out there trying to do what he did to Sean Porter, then hey man, it could be a long tough night with some very scary moments, right? in ones where you're like, oh, dang, Errol just got clipped. That can happen with Danny Garcia. So, I don't necessarily agree with Terence Crawford with the Danny Garcia fight. I think Danny Garcia is the level of fighter where you just gotta, where Errol Spence Jr. getting a win over Danny Garcia is enough, right? Some of these guys you're not gonna knock out, right? Errol Spence Jr. did not knock out Sean Porter. He went for it against Sean Porter, but that is going to be a tough nut to crack, right? So I never really held anything against Errol Spence Jr. for his performance with Sean Porter because I knew what Errol Spence was trying to do. He was trying to take him out of there. He wasn't trying to box. He wasn't trying to win on the scorecard. He was trying to win with, in what was the guy's name? Leonard Bundu fashion with Sean Porter, bent over, laid out, sprawled out with his legs stuck up underneath his body. That type of craziness is what Errol Spence Jr. was trying to do to him. So, all in all, I'm treating Errol Spence Jr. as if Errol Spence Jr. is 100%. I do not believe that Danny Garcia, if he doesn't look tremendous against Danny Garcia, that somehow is evidence of him not being all the way back, because Danny Garcia is a better fighter than that. And, and styles make fights. And that's a difficult style matchup or a dangerous style matchup for Errol Spence Jr. depending on how he fights, right? But at the end of the day, man, I think Errol Spence is going to beat Danny Garcia. And then I think that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford are going to get into the ring. And like Errol Spence Jr. said, they're going to have to pay those dudes because they both going to go in there trying to kill each other, and it's going to be a great fight. But anyway, that's my take on the situation. You let me know what you think. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you are subscribed or you're subscribing now, make sure you hit that bell icon and look and select all notifications. Thank you to everybody that supports on the Patreon, everybody that supports in the channel memberships and through the live streams, the Cash Apps, and the Super Chats. Thank you guys so much for all you do for the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.